It was a quiet night in suburban Chicago. The streetlights flickered over tidy lawns, and neighbors slept soundly in their beds. But in one house on Summerdale Avenue, a darkness festered. A darkness so deep that would eventually claim the lives of at least 33 young men. The man who lived there smiled politely to neighbors, volunteered at charity events, and even entertained children as Pogo the Clown. No one suspected that behind the painted smile was a nightmare. John Wayne Gacy, one of America's most notorious serial killers. Imagine a man whose charm could disarm anyone, whose laughter could hide murder. That was Gacy, and for years, he walked among ordinary people while committing extraordinary horrors. John Wayne Gacy was born in 1942 in Chicago, Illinois. His childhood was far from happy. His father was strict, controlling, and often abusive, while his mother struggled to maintain peace in the household. Young John was introverted and awkward, constantly seeking approval but failing to fit in with peers. Even in his teenage years, Gacy displayed troubling behavior. He lied, manipulated, and harbored a fascination with authority and control. Friends recall him as polite yet strange, a young man whose smiles could conceal unease. Small signs hinted at a darker side, an obsession with dominance and a fascination with masks and costume that would later define his Pogo the Clown persona. By the late 1950s and early 1960s, Gacy's life seemed ordinary. He attended college, married, and even became involved in local politics. But beneath the surface, disturbing impulses were building, impulses that would soon erupt in unspeakable violence. In the 1970s, Gacy became a fixture in his Chicago community. He joined civic organizations, hosted barbecues, and performed as Pogo the Clown at children's parties. By day, he was cheerful, generous, and seemingly trustworthy. By night, he began to act on his dark compulsions. This dual life allowed him to evade suspicion. Neighbors couldn't imagine that the friendly man they waved to on the street was luring young men into his home. And yet, for those who paid attention, small signs were there. A private room he never let anyone enter, late-night comings and goings, a lingering air of secrecy. Gacy's first known murders occurred in the early 1970s. He targeted young men, often runaways or vulnerable individuals, luring them with promises of work, money, or fun. Once inside his home, he restrained and assaulted them, and ultimately killed them. The initial murders were calculated, but chaotic. Gacy experimented with methods, selecting victims based on opportunity and ease of control. After each killing, he hid the bodies in his house, creating a literal tomb beneath the surface of his suburban home. At the same time, Gacy maintained a public image of normalcy. He continued volunteering, performing as a clown, and raising his family. This duality, polite neighbor versus predator, made his crimes even more disturbing. As the decade progressed, Gacy's crimes escalated. The frequency of murders increased, and the methods became more systematic. Victims were selected carefully, often young men who reminded him of his desires for control and dominance. Families began reporting missing sons, but police initially found little evidence linking the disappearances. Meanwhile, Gacy continued to charm the community, attend parties, and perform as Pogo. The contrast between his public generosity and private monstrosity created a chilling tension. The people living alongside him were oblivious to the horror under their feet. The turning point came in December 1978. A persistent investigation into a missing teenager led police to Gacy's home. Officers discovered a horrifying scene: restraints, personal belongings of missing young men, and a crawl space filled with bodies. The scale of Gacy's crimes stunned the nation. 29 bodies were found in his home, and others were discovered in nearby rivers. The meticulous planning, dual life, and sheer number of victims made him one of America's most infamous serial killers. Experts who studied Gacy concluded that he exhibited classic psychopathy: charm, manipulation, lack of empathy, and a compulsive need for control. His crimes were ritualistic in nature, and his choice of victims reflected deep-seated psychological drives. Gacy's ability to compartmentalize his life allowed him to continue his public persona while committing horrific acts in secret. His clown persona became both a mask and a tool, a symbol of innocence twisted into a weapon of terror. In 1980, Gacy stood trial for 33 murders. The courtroom drama captivated the nation. Families testified, gruesome evidence was presented, and the defense attempted to portray him as insane. The prosecution painted a picture of methodical evil. Gacy was convicted and sentenced to death. For 14 years, he remained on death row, maintaining a chilling calm, until he was executed by lethal injection in 1994. The aftermath of his crimes left scars that remain today. Grieving families, a terrified community, and a justice system forced to adapt to the realities of serial murder. Gacy's story also changed how law enforcement investigated missing persons and approached psychological profiling. John Wayne Gacy is remembered not only for the horrors he inflicted, but for the terrifying lesson he left behind. Evil can hide behind the most ordinary masks. A neighbor, a volunteer, a clown, he was all of these things. And yet beneath the smiling face was a darkness capable of shattering countless lives. For the citizens of Chicago and the entire United States, Gacy's story remains a chilling reminder. Appearances can deceive, and sometimes the greatest horrors exist in plain sight.